Late Night Health continues, hour two. We're going to take a look at autism. We've talked about autism over the years a number of times. We're going to talk about a program that is called jadensvoice.org. jadensvoice.org, that is designed to help others affected by autism. Autism is growing. The numbers of our kids who have it are increasing. We're not exactly sure why, but maybe we'll have some insight in that. Our guest is Terry Matthews. Her passion is helping people, and that passion has a purpose. Terry, welcome to Late Night Health.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, our pleasure. You have an interesting background. You're a serial mama-tateur, something like that.
Mamapreneur. That's good.
Yes,
that's good.
That's
it's
good.
A little bit of mom and entrepreneur, and
right.
It's a lot of work.
Yeah, of course. Construction, cleaning, TM Partners, consulting firms, consulting firm that deals with high-profile clients and all kinds of things. And at the same time, and you're married to Lee Woodall,
right.
a Super Bowl champion, former NFL linebacker and San Francisco 49er. You're not back in California? Where are you guys?
So we go back and forth between here and California. We are located in Philadelphia. This is where our office for the nonprofit organization is, and we do a lot of work across the United States, but also a lot over here on the East Coast. Gotcha.
And Philadelphia is one of my favorite places.
They have great food.
Ooh, do they have great food? And that's the way to get to me. How did you decide to start an organization, a nonprofit, for the autistic community?
So my son, Mark, the name of our foundation is Jaden's Voice, and named after our son, Jaden. Jaden is now 11. He just turned 11 on Monday. And he was diagnosed with autism when he was at about 2.5, 3 years old. And so after realizing that everyone did not have access to services, and my experience was just one that was very difficult when it came to my son being diagnosed and finding out not everyone had access to resources, we created Jaden's Voice to bridge that gap.
And how is Jaden?
So Jaden is a kid who was born what we would say is quote-unquote normal, if there is such a thing. And then after that, about 2.5, he had a fever for about 3 or 4 days. He lost all ability to speak, point, and was back in a diaper. So it was like my son.
Oh, my.
Yeah, it's very difficult because he spoke, and, he was a lively, active, typical 2-year-old boy. And it was like he had died mentally, if that means any sense, and physically he was still here. And then, after that, we wouldn't hear his voice probably for another 4 years. And then after 4 years of very intense therapy, speech, occupational therapy, and, round-the-clock types of care, he would start using, one word, and then he would eventually make 2 words and then a sentence. And now he can communicate his needs pretty well. He's still not talking or operating like a typical 11-year-old, but he's super fun. I've learned a lot about love and patience and the depth of who I am just as a human being, so I'm so grateful to God for him. He's taught me a whole lot.
Do you have other children?
I do. Jaden is the third child. He has 2 older siblings. We're a blended family, so he has actually 4 older siblings.
Oh, my.
But I had 2 children prior to, and so he's at home now with a brother and a sister, and typical brother-sister fight and tattletelling happens in our household.
Does he tattletale too?
Yeah, he does. It's so funny because, like, when Lee's getting on the kids about music or getting their chores done, or we come in, he'll go, "Ooh, they were listening to rap music with curse words," and curse words to him is like somebody says, "Shut up." That's a curse word. So he certainly tells. He's like, "That's not good. We don't have that kind of behavior in our home." So he's always like repeating everything, and of course, typical brother and sister, they're like, "We can't wait till the parents leave because we are going to annoy you to death."
Well, didn't you do that when your parents left?
Exactly.
That's their job.
Right.
Their job is to annoy us as parents.
Right, absolutely.
Right.
So he's funny. He tells on them quite a bit. So he says he wants to make sure that they do well in life. That's what he tells them. You have to do well in life, and you can't do well if you don't listen.
I love it. I think that's terrific. Working for the last 7 years with Jaden's voice, you've come in contact with a lot of parents and a lot of autistic kids as well. Is autism still totally misunderstood?
Oh, thank you for asking that question, Mark. It's a good one to know and a good one for your viewers to hear. As far along as we've come with autism, even from, a long time ago, people probably remember the show Rain Man.
Sure.
And then now you have the show Good Doctor that's doing extremely well, but it is only showing one view of autism. There's a saying that, you meet one autistic individual, you meet one autistic individual. We know more information than we did, but it's still not as acceptable or understood, and there's a lot of stigmas associated with it, and we have not done a good job dumping the amount of media and support to educate on autism. It's probably no different than when breast cancer came out, right? It wasn't cool to be on the front cover of a paper or magazine covering your breast that you had removed.
Right.
That wasn't just something that we did. Now today we have football players that run up and down, the football field, and they wear pink towels and socks, and there's ribbons everywhere because there's a celebration and also a willingness to understand. And our goal is to, not only at Jaden's Voice, which is why we called it Jaden's Voice. When Jaden lost his voice, I became his voice. And then I felt like I was the voice of many parents who, for a variety of reasons, couldn't accept autism. They did accept it. They didn't know how to communicate. They didn't know how to advocate for their rights or their child's rights. We became their voice. And our goal is to be their voice and teach them how to have a voice so they're strong enough. And we hold their hand until they're strong enough to have one on their own. So that's why our organization is named that. But autism, there's a lot still to be learned, especially since there's no cure.
And at the same time, it manifests in everybody differently.
Absolutely, which makes it more difficult. There's a couple of characteristics and core symptoms that you see that you can have. That's why they call it the autism spectrum, because it can be broad, and it is broad. So you can run into challenges where there are situations where you have a typical child who is verbal, and you might not think that he's on the spectrum because he or she can communicate their needs, and then you have ones that are very low functioning and they can't communicate their needs, and then people say, oh, they're mentally retarded. They're not necessarily mentally retarded, they're just autistic. So and because the other challenge is if you have a child who is nonverbal, which Jaden was, and unfortunately someone had hit the van that he was in headed to school when he was younger, and he was nonverbal during that time, and they crashed into it head on.
Oh my.
And he flipped out of the chair, and he was buckled in and everything, and thank God he wasn't injured, but his driver was injured pretty badly. And when he began to talk, which was 3 years later from that accident, he told me exactly what happened. So I say that to say when you're thinking about the low-functioning individuals who can't necessarily communicate, what people think is that they don't understand, and they do. So even if you're talking around them and you're saying things that are inappropriate or you're frustrated and you're getting your frustrations out, even if it's in reference to that child, they understand. And most people don't realize. It's like when my son started telling me even disagreements I had with people when he was nonverbal. And I was like, oh, my God. I went and grabbed my iPhone, and I started recording him.
He's now on a higher level of that spectrum?
He is. So he's in the 5th grade. He spends about 70% in an autistic support classroom. It's actually lowered, I think, a little bit less than that. But he goes basically to math and science, which is in his general ed classroom. And he is at a phenomenal school that the friends in his general ed, which is your neurotypical developing kids, they're really awesome towards him. They help him with things that he needs, but he's very strong in math and science. He can build and draw like no one's business. He's so precise that if they ever allowed him to be an architect without probably formal college, just because of all the other stuff that you have to take,
right,
he would be really good. But outside of that, then he spends a certain time in reading, because even though he's in the 5th grade, he's about 2nd grade level with reading and understanding.
Our guest is Terry Matthews. We'll have a picture of her up on our website, latenighthealth.com, as well as a short little article and a link to jadensvoice.org. I just gave you the link. It's a worthwhile place to take a look at, especially if you need some assistance in learning more about autism for your family or a friend of the family. When we come back, we'll continue our conversation and we'll wrap up today's show. Richard Gordon rejoins us today, and we're going to be talking about energy healing with Richard. I'm Mark Allen, along with the insane Daryl Wayne. Don't go away as Late Night Health continues.
Welcome to Guide to the Soul. This is Robert Clancy. When your life's problems seem to rise and fall like the waves on a stormy ocean, let hope become your life raft and faith become your paddle. Every sea touches a calm shoreline somewhere in the world, and eventually this storm that you're going through will pass too. Never allow negative circumstances to define you. Whatever happens to you in life may be fated, and it certainly can't be changed after the fact. What you can change is how you feel about it and how you're going to let it affect you. Today is a brand new day, and as with any gift, share it with love and gratitude.
For more inspiration from Robert Clancy, visit guidetothesoul.com or go to the Moments with Robert page on latenighthealth.com.
The latest from the greatest, the best in new music by classic rockers, with your host, the insane Daryl Wayne.
This is Alice Cooper, and if Daryl Wayne is insane, what does that make me? Criminally insane. Stick around to find out.
It is the latest from the greatest. We've had some really good conversations over the 5 years that this program has been going on with some great rock artists and some people from behind the scenes, authors and otherwise producers. Some of those have been captured on the latest for the greatest Volume 1. It's available on Amazon, or if you go to blackstoneaudio.com, blackstoneaudio.com, or Amazon, search for Daryl Wayne, Darrell Wayne.
I'm the Reverend Al Green, and I said Wayne insane.